Hello and welcome to the channel. As many of you may be aware, I recently completed a very thorough review of the Exway Flex utilizing the Riot system. And I received a lot of great compliments for the video, but I was also inundated with comments such as, great review, but what's up with the hubs, man? And that's what this particular video will be about. Now, before we get started, I want to briefly go over the pros and the cons of a belt drive system versus a hub system. And I'm not going to go into great detail, but I just want to provide a little bit of context. Many people who like utilizing the belt drive system like it because individuals can use 4 real wheels. And what this allows you to do is switch up the wheels to utilize different durometers, different colors, and even different size wheels. Now, many individuals who like the hub driven systems normally choose those systems because less maintenance. When you're utilizing belt drive system, you have to often change belts, adjust belt tension, and you may even have to clean the belts when going on rides because sometimes small rocks and pebbles get into the system. I can honestly tell you that I've actually removed 2 pebbles, small pebbles, from my Exway belt drive, and I've only had it for maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks. It's not that big of a deal, but some people just would prefer not to have to deal with that at all. So now, let's talk a little bit about the process of changing the drivetrain system, and then I will give you my thoughts on the hub-driven system. So the first step that you need to do is actually disconnect the wires connecting the drivetrain system to the ESC and the board. It's very simple. You just simply give a slight pull and they disconnect. The second step is to actually go ahead and peel back the grip tape. And this is possible because Exway is actually utilizing a foam grip tape, which allows you to temporarily pull it back up, but then also push it and press it back down, and it remains in place. After that is complete, go ahead and unscrew the bolts on the board and then remove the truck along with the drivetrain system. After this is complete, you can then install the hub driven system. And as you can see, you simply utilize the truck and the drivetrain system and put it on top of the board and screw the bolts down in place. After that is completed, go ahead and connect the wires on the drivetrain system to the wires connected to the ESC, and this is very easy as well. One thing that you may want to take note of is both the wires on the drivetrain system and the wires on the ESC have an arrow pointing forward. Make sure that the arrows on both wires are facing each other before pushing the plugs together, and it will fit very smoothly. I had to learn that the hard way. After this is completed, there's a very important step that you must do. Log into the Exway app and change the drivetrain system from belt drive to hub motor system. And by doing this, now the board recognizes that you are utilizing a hub motor system. And finally, what you need to do is turn the board and the remote off and then turn the board back on, and that resets the board and you're ready to go. Make sure you do this final step. I did not, and when I tried to throttle the board, it made a very weird sound. That's because the board and the ESC had not completely reset itself because I did not turn the board off. So make sure you do that and you'll be good to go. So now let's talk about the board, the ride experience. Surprisingly, the polyurethane on the hub motor wheel of the Exway is very, very good. It was very grippy. I felt pretty comfortable under most riding situations, and even when I was riding and carving and turning and going over different terrains, it felt very grippy. I felt like I was connected to the road. And of course, Exway ships with 85mm wheels, and my particular board has 80A durometer. However, consumers, when they get their Exway Flexes, they will actually have a durometer of 76A, which is actually going to be a little bit softer, and technically speaking, should be a little bit more grippy. Another element that I thought was pretty cool was the fact that the wheels felt very smooth and comparable to the belt drive system when going over roads that were not too rocky or bumpy or anything like that. So that was good to experience as well. However, when I did start to ride over less ideal terrain and roads, you can definitely feel a difference in the vibrations. So for example, when I was riding on a concrete trail, every about 3 feet there's a gap in the concrete where they pour the slab. You felt every time you went over one of those. And as you can imagine, eventually they got a little bit uncomfortable. And then also when riding on roads that are not ideal, that are not very smooth, tarmac or anything like that, you definitely feel a little bit more vibration than you would feel if you were riding the belt drive system with 4 real wheels. But nevertheless, I would say that it was not a very bad experience because I think the flex of the deck and then the shock absorption grip tape make a world of difference. However, you are going to experience more vibration when you're utilizing the hub driven system versus the belt drive system. So it's definitely something you should take into consideration. The acceleration, torque, and speed. This was something that I was very shocked. So much so that I had to ride the board several more times to make sure what I was experiencing is what I was experiencing. The acceleration with the hub driven system is actually less than the acceleration with the belt drive. And I was a little shocked because the X1, the hub driven system, actually is faster than the belt drive. At least that's what many people experience. And some attribute it to the fact that hub motors actually freewheel easier than belt drive. Even so, my hub system with the Flex was actually a little bit slower when you talk about the acceleration and the torque than the belt drive system. I was still able to reach the same top speed like I did on the belt drive system of 25 miles per hour. I actually reached 25.1 miles an hour, but it seemed like it took it longer to get there. I was throttling, I was like, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. And then I finally got to the top speed. Was it fast? Yes, but it wasn't as fast as the belt drive system, which I thought was very, very interesting. When I reached out to Exway about this, I said, hey, what's going on with this? Why am I experiencing that? And they informed me that because the software isn't 100% yet, you can expect something like that. But they claim that by the time the board reaches consumers, that acceleration and torque will definitely be there. Now, the board wasn't slow or moving very sluggishly. It wasn't as fast as the belt drive. So that's something you should definitely consider as well. Brakes. The brakes was an area that was also pretty fascinating as well, because the brakes seemed a little bit softer to me also than with the belt drive system. When I was speaking with Exway about that component as well, they said that that's another area that of course will be fine-tuned when things are all said and done. Now, the brakes were not dangerous whatsoever. They actually felt like the brakes on other hub motor boards that I ride all the time. It's just that I'm accustomed to having very strong brakes due to the X1. Now, Exway recommended that I do something. They said, hey, have you tried out the free mode? And for many of you, if you have not utilized or don't know what the free mode is, you can activate a setting from within the Exway app that allows you to, when you pull on the throttle backwards, not only does the board stop, but the board will go into reverse. It's very similar to what you see with the boosted boards. And guys, when I tell you that free mode was amazing, because to me, it almost made the braking strength as strong as with the X1, which is amazing and very good. So actually, I learned something from the brakes not being as good as I wanted them to be on the hub driven system, which is that the free mode is pretty amazing on the Flex. And there's a difference in the free mode on the Flex and the X1. And how it was explained to me is that the X1 has different acceleration and braking curves than the Exway Flex. And as a result, I felt like the braking curve utilizing the free mode on the Flex is actually very good. Whereas with the X1, I don't like to use the free mode on the X1 because I feel like it's just too aggressive as you're braking. So this is definitely something that individuals may want to take into consideration as well. Now, with the range, this was something that I was pleasantly surprised to experience. I received 12.8 miles on the board. My top speed was 25.1 miles, and it said that I had an average speed of 14.4 miles, which is very slow, when in actuality, I would say that I was more around 17 miles an hour. But the last, I would say maybe 15 minutes of my ride, I just circled around in my community after I finished my ride to try to get the board to go all the way down until it wouldn't ride anymore. And in my neighborhood, I have lots of hills, but then of course the battery was going down, so the top speed wasn't like it was as I was actually riding. So as I was checking the app throughout my ride, my average speed was actually closer to around 17 miles an hour. So as a result, I ended up with 12.8 miles of range. And like I said, that average speed, I would say, is around 16, almost 17 miles an hour. So I was pretty impressed with that as well. To be honest about it, I was expecting something in that ballpark of that area because hub motors generally freewheel a little bit better. So it's not uncommon for people to actually get a little bit more range on hub motors than they do with the belt drive system. So definitely something you may want to take into consideration once again. Now some of my nitpicks and things that Exway may want to consider. This board was pretty solid. I really enjoyed with the hub system. I'm a belt drive guy, to be honest about it, but really the hubs, it wasn't like a bad experience. It wasn't a bad ride at all, but I think that there are some things that Exway can do to maybe improve. One of those is I think that Exway should offer larger wheel options, something like maybe a 95 or 96 millimeter wheel. And the reason why I recommend this is that if Exway were to increase the wheel size, that means that the polyurethane on the rear wheel will actually be thicker, which could potentially increase the rider comfort, maybe even give you a little bit more grippiness. So I think that Exway should consider doing something like that, because it's not uncommon for people when they buy boards to go out and put a larger wheel on their board in the first place. So I think the option to be able to just have your board shipped with a larger wheel could be a good look. Another area that I think Exway should really consider doing is actually putting cutouts in the grip tape. It's a little annoying to have to peel back the grip tape when you want to do maintenance and different things like that on your board. So for example, when I wanted to change the belt drive, I had to peel up the grip tape to actually access the bolts on the board. Also, similarly, I recently put shred lights on my board, and in order to access the bolts, I had to peel up the front grip tape as well and smash it back down. The grip tape does go back to its original form very well, but it would really reduce the amount of time when you're working on your board if the bolts were just actually exposed through the grip tape like other grip tapes are. I think it would just be a little bit more proficient. So I think that if maybe Exway can offer maybe the option to choose that. I know that some other board companies, you have the option to purchase your deck with a handle built into it or no handle at all. I think it might be cool if Exway offers an option where they say, hey, do you want the cutouts around the bolts on your grip tape, or do you want the bolts covered up, so that people have those options. Final thoughts. I was actually very impressed with the hub driven system. The grip on these hub motor wheels was very impressive to me. I felt very in tune with the road. I felt like I had grip. I didn't feel uncomfortable or anything like that as far as a traction perspective. Now, I did, as I mentioned earlier, feel a little bit more vibration when I was riding, especially when going over non-ideal surfaces. So that's definitely something that people need to consider. I think that when the software is finally updated and finished, I wouldn't be surprised that if people who purchase the hub motor system get a tad bit more range than individuals utilizing the belt drive system. Once again, some of the benefits of utilizing a hub driven system is the fact that you don't have to worry about belts, changing belt tension, changing belts if they snap, rocks or pebbles actually getting into your belts from riding. The hub driven system is very sealed, so it makes it a very user-friendly type experience, especially for individuals who may be new to e-skate and are just wanting to just focus on charging the board and being able to go out and ride. So definitely the hub motor system has its place. I just think that individuals should also consider that when you're utilizing the hub system, you may experience a little bit more discomfort. And then with that back wheel having a thinner polyurethane, you will need to change the polyurethane after you put in so many miles on your board or kilometers on your board. But overall, I was pretty impressed with the board. And I think it's pretty amazing that Exway allows people to go back and forth between the different drivetrain systems. There's going to be some people out there that are going to want both systems because of that flexibility, that ability to customize the ride experience of what you're going to be doing that particular day. And then there's others who just want to mess with the belt drive system. Nevertheless, the fact that we have options makes it absolutely amazing. As always, I'll see you at the top because the bottom is too crowded. Peace.